In this video, I'm going to be talking about everything we know that's most likely coming to Season 8 next week. We have the new weapon, fuse, King's Canyon changes, and some buffs and nerfs to talk about. So we'll start with the new 30-30 repeater. It seems to be a slower firing DMR that has some kind of charge up feature when you aim down sight. Next we have fuse. Judging by the trailers we've seen so far, both the gameplay trailer and some of the adverts they've been posting on social media, Fuse will have a tactical where he throws different types of grenades from his arm. There's one grenade that explodes into a cluster. I'm assuming this is his tactical, but we're also seeing him throw arc stars as well, so that may be part of his passive. Fuse also has an ultimate where he throws down a ring of fire onto enemies in an area, similar to the tease we saw in the game earlier this month. King's Canyon is also getting some massive changes. First, it's getting a very beautiful new color scheme. It's going to look bright blue, much better than the current King's Canyon for sure. There's going to be a new point of interest above artillery. Artillery's been slightly destroyed and you can now travel from artillery to this new area, and there's a new point of interest to replace slums. What's interesting is this new area, which I believe would connect to slums, also is placed in an area that was once inaccessible. It's in the mountains, so the mountains have been completely leveled and we have this new point of interest. So King's Canyon is actually being expanded in size. Some buildings are also being removed around the map. The idea is that a lot of people will gather in these buildings, loot and bunker up, and when players travel through these areas to get from point of interest to point of interest, it will create very long fights that would turn into massive multi-party third parties, 4th, 5th, 6th, you know the drill. They are also adding a new feature called Observation Towers. There'll be 4 on King's Canyon. Essentially, you go to the tower and you can activate it and it will send you up into the sky to get a good look of the surrounding area. With some of these points of interest and these new observation towers, it seems very likely that Respawn are trying to push towards a more mid-range meta instead of up-in-your-face action. There's also going to be a new loot feature in King's Canyon. There are these containers that you can put a grenade in and it will explode and open it up, and inside you'll find a bunch of loot, both weapons and attachments. Interestingly though, to balance the loot on King's Canyon, the loot bunkers have been closed off. You can no longer get to them, so we're getting these instead. We did also see cargo balls in the Season 8 launch trailer, so they may come to King's Canyon. You can already get them on Mirage Voyage. We also saw flyers, so it's likely we'll have flyers, maybe cargo balls in some of the new areas, and loot ticks. So those are 3 loot different items, and then the new sort of grenade container things. Really interesting. Next, it's time to talk about the buffs and nerfs. So some of the details aren't really concrete and we cannot confirm whether they're all going to be in the game or not once Season 8 drops, but it is very likely. Rampart's getting a buff. She's going to have 45 health whilst her shields are deploying. Well, her shields are, not her. It's hard to say whether this is going to be a big enough change to make her stronger. One thing is that it's going to soak up bullets instead of the bullet just passing straight through and doing damage to them. So even if you shoot one wingman bullet at the wall, yes, it is going to break immediately, but that bullet isn't going to pass through that shield and hit a player behind it. So it's definitely a nice step forward. Perhaps we're going to need more Rampart buffs, but at least they're doing something here. Definitely small steps, but a great start. To kind of balance this, I don't really think it needs much balancing, but snipers will shoot through these and still damage players on the other side, just like in the past. They also want to mess around with the turret and the angles of the turret and some animations, but that's not coming in Season 8. We also know that Wraith is likely to get a hitbox nerf in Season 8. Not confirmed, but likely. And to balance this, they may change the timings on the tactical a little bit so that she has faster tactical draw animations, maybe similar to how they were before Season 5, but we'll have to wait and see what happens once Season 8 launches. Loba's also getting a small buff. You'll now be able to loot from care packages without them being opened first. In the past, you would have to have the care package open for the loot to actually spawn into the game, and with this new system, you'll now be able to see those items inside of the care package and loot them from Loba's ult without anyone actually opening it. So it could be a good way to steal some loot if you're really needing a weapon and you just spawn back into the game, late game or something like that. The devs are experimenting with changing Loba's tactical timings, but that's in development right now and it's not coming to Season 8. It probably won't come in a midway patch in Season 8 either. Next, we're getting an Octane buff, or at least we should be getting an Octane buff. In Season 7, they fixed a bug which would stop you from being able to jump the second you touch the jump pad to get extra height, and they realized a lot of people were complaining and hoping that they could add it back, because whilst it was a bug, it sort of became a very common feature that Octane players expected to have at their arsenal. Well, they're going to be basically putting that back in and giving players more control when they jump. So perhaps if you slide on it, you'll get more distance. If you just run and jump, you'll get more height. But there's no confirmation whether this will come in Season 8 or not, but it is likely. We do have gold magazines. Gold magazines are going to work the same way as purple magazines in terms of their bullet count. However, they will reload your magazine when you put your weapon away. When you holster your weapon, it will reload automatically. One of the devs did say that it's not super overpowered and it does take some time to do, and a lot of people are complaining that this is going to be a really overpowered thing. People are thinking that they're going to put away their weapon and instantly it's going to reload and they're going to be able to pull it back out again. I very much doubt it. It's probably timed very well. I don't think this is supposed to be used as a way to just spam a ton of bullets. I think that it's kind of just there so that, you know, it's a nice sort of extra feature so that you can fight, quickly switch to your other weapon and maybe like 5 seconds later switch back and you don't have to reload it. It's a small power change for sure, but not massive. Now, we don't have the entire patch notes available yet. This is just going on what developers have said and stated, and we know that, like in the past, sometimes things don't actually make it to the season in time, so we'll have to wait and see what happens. We know there's supposed to be a Mirage buff where Mirage's footsteps actually play, or his Bamboozle's footsteps play. We know there's supposed to be a fix for Caustic's heirloom, so when you hit a door, you'll actually get a new animation where you hit with the hammer itself. We also know that a Horizon nerf is sort of in development or in the works, but it seems like they're experimenting with what to do with her. They may change her movement speed whilst in the air, and we don't really know much more about that, and perhaps we'll see that dreaded Caustic buff as well in Season 8. Maybe they'll just shelf that. It really depends on what happened between the last Season 7 patch and Season 8 patch in terms of the data they're seeing for legend balancing. There's definitely potential for there to be a lot of weapon balancing as well. My guess is they're going to nerf close range weapons a little bit and give more power to the long range weapons. If they really want this mid-range meta a bit more, I mean, they've even got a level 110 battle pass longbow skin this season, so it seems to fit with me. I think they're aiming for a slightly more mid to long range meta. In the past, they've kind of failed with actually implementing this, so we'll have to see if it works this time or not. We also know there's going to be more lore in this season. We don't know exactly what, but one of the writers did say that Bloodhound's going to have some spotlight in this story, perhaps in the comic. I expect they'll keep doing that. We also know there'll be some legend interactions. Once again, one of the writers is quite often teasing on Twitter a bunch of stuff that will come, so we can expect Lifeline to show her distaste for Fuse, some things between Caustic and Watson as well, and there's probably going to be a bunch of interactions like usual, so I'll definitely have to go and check those out in-game in a future video when Season 8 launches. So that's pretty much it. I hope you enjoyed this video. Do let me know what you think, and let me know the one thing you're most looking forward to in Season 8. Alright everyone, thanks for watching. Cheerio!